It has been a long time. It's been like a year or 2 years. It's been a while. And there is a reason for that. But we're here for a video, okay? So YouTube has these little chapter things. Skip to the chapter where the video starts if you don't care. If you do, I'll tell you now. Basically, this video, this entire video, this hour some video, I'm just predicting it's going to be long. I had already recorded it and half edited it, and somehow the footage killed itself. I don't know why, but it just did, and I was so frustrated because I didn't have the original footage. I don't know what happened to it, and I was like, you know what, I'm done. I got so frustrated, I just quit straight up. And that was also kind of contrasting. That was conflicting with another issue that I had just started taking Adderall for ADHD, or I was trying to get Adderall for ADHD, but I couldn't, and it was really bothering me because my friend lent me some, and I was like, oh my god, I'm so productive, I can live my life now. And then I didn't have it at the time, like consistently. So on the days that I didn't, I felt even worse than before because I was like, oh, I could be doing so well. It was a whole thing. But now it's been a while. I have my own prescription. I have my consistency. I'm feeling good, and I am right now in a place where I'm like, you know what? Time to start making videos again. And so I went to go look, and I actually still have the entire script here of the video that I was supposed to do, or yeah, that I had done and was then deleted. So I'm thinking this is a great place to start. I'm gonna see if I can just finish this, and then see if I can finish this little mini series, and then from there, if I feel like it, I'm gonna keep going with the channel. If I feel like it. And I know that's kind of lazy to say, but you know, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, yeah, we'll see. Anyway, without further ado, this is the locations iceberg. This is the third tier. The first video was tiers 1 and 2 put together. This is now the third tier out of 6, I believe. And so I've actually split this one up, or split this one up into 4 categories. So within this tier, there are nature places. It's like kind of natural disaster stuff, or like historical disaster stuff. Then there's government, mystery, or conspiracy as another thing. The third is abandoned places that were at some point used, but now they're abandoned. Whoa. And then the last distinction is religious or mythology spaces, kind of stuff, that kind of stuff. And honestly, it's kind of a miscellaneous slot because there's some weird places on this list. So anyway, let's get into it. Oh, I also have a toothache. Baltic Sea Anomaly. This was discovered in the summer of 2011 by treasure hunters. Kind of funny. It's like legal treasure hunting where they go and they find things of high value. You know, like they know if a ship had some gold on it or had some expensive wine and it sank, right? And it's like, oh, you know, why not? So they went and they took a bunch of pictures of the ocean with this fancy machine, and they found this really kind of blurry spot, but it looked strange enough that they went back for a second picture on another day. And they found that there was some electromagnetic frequency or disturbance or whatever that kind of made it so they couldn't really get a clear shot of it. As for the explanation, it kind of is just a rock. I know it's kind of underwhelming, but it is kind of just like a rock that looks really cool. I think there's been like a submarine or two that's been sent down there to check it out. But at the end of the day, it just happened to look really cool. And I think as far as the not being able to take a picture, there wasn't really any information on that online. I think they just kind of weren't able to at the time, but I don't think there was like a field or something because there were better pictures of it nowadays. So, yeah. Die Rokotsbruk, or Devil's Bridge, is located in Kramalu Azale, oh my gosh, sorry, Rhododendron Park in Gablenz, Germany. Sorry about that one. The bridge is 35 meters long, and it was commissioned to be built by Friedrich Hermann Rotsch in 1860. There's nothing crazy about it. It's kind of just a cool bridge. This is actually on a bridge wiki list titled Devil's Bridges, and there's so many bridges across the world that have been labeled Devil's Bridges, and there's like a wiki list on them. So, yeah, very interesting. Rockall is in reference to a rock formation roughly located in the Atlantic Ocean between Iceland and Ireland. It's not really something you could live on because it's in the middle of the ocean, and it's pretty small. Its first mentions are in the 16th century, and since then, less than 20 people have even stepped foot on this thing. The longest stay being 45 days. Someone had a camping trip. I guess it was part of a challenge or something, but 45 days is pretty intense. There were 4 new species of slug, clam, and seaworm discovered around it, which is pretty cool. But other than that, yeah, just a very dangerous rock. Bermeja. Bermeja is supposedly located north of the Yucatan Peninsula in the Gulf of Mexico. However, this island is nowhere to be found. The first mentions of this island were in a published list of islands by Alonso Chavez in the book El Yucatan de Islas Adyacentes, or The Yucatan and Adjacent Islands, published in 1539. In the book, Chavez describes the island as reddish yellow, but never actually stepped a foot on it. He only observed it from a distance from a ship with like a magnifying glass or whatever. Apparently, since 1844, British maps have reported that the island has sunk for one reason or the other, and in 2009, studies were done by the National Autonomous University of Mexico, and they found that there is no island. This obviously led to debate and conspiracy as to when it disappeared, if it was an island at all, blah, blah, blah. Because this island specifically actually plays a really important role in discussing the boundaries of where the US of A can actually drill oil in the Gulf. Some people suggest the CIA actually had the island destroyed to secure their oil rights to this place, which I would believe, given the CIA. But apparently this island has been missing since like the 1900s, very early 1900s, so there's probably more to the story here. Either way, there was an island and now there is not, so it's interesting. Veryovkina Cave. I think that was okay. Located in Abkhazia, Georgia, discovered in 1968. This is the deepest cave in the world with a depth of 2,212 meters or 7,257 feet. It wasn't even until 2019 that the deepest part of this cave was explored and recorded, and this was after many explorations since its discovery. Not much has really happened here, other than in 2021, a body was discovered of a cave explorer in one of the harder parts of the cave, and unfortunately they died of hypothermia. But other than that, this cave has seen no deaths, so like one death, I guess. Dead Vlei, located in Namib Naukluft Park in Namibia, which is in southern Africa. The place takes its name from the Afrikaans word for a sort of dyed marsh between dunes, and the word dead from English. So this place is cool because it is in the middle of the desert, and it's kind of like, how did life get there? But it essentially is a dried oasis. At some point, hundreds of years ago, there was a pool that prospered. There was, trees, plants, and stuff, and global warming, blah, blah, blah. It dried, and all the trees have basically scorched. And they're so dry, and it's so hot that bacteria can't even rot them. So they're just kind of sitting there. Siachen Glacier Disputes. The Siachen Glacier Disputes is in reference to a proxy war between India and Pakistan over the Siachen Glacier and the nearby ridges and mountains and stuff. It started in 1971 during a Indo-Pakistani war that was ended in 1972 by the Simla Agreement. Essentially, it was a treaty of ceasefire that the UN mediated between the two countries. Now, the treaty wasn't really clear over who ended up owning the glaciers, so after that, they started fighting again. And the UN is actually aware of this issue in the documents, but concluded that the area was so inhospitable and cold that neither country would even want to fight for it anyway. That was the public statement. For the government of Pakistan, the glaciers were seen as their land that was stolen by India, whereas in India, the glaciers were nobody's land and it was theirs for the taking. For the rest of the world, at least on the global political scale or whatever, this kind of seemed like a really ridiculous fight, so no one really cared that much. But yeah, that is what's going on with the Siachen Glacier dispute. Lake Hillier, located on the island of Goldfields, Esperance, Australia, is a pink lake. The first written record of this is a dude called Matthew Flinders on his expedition in 1802. He describes the location as a small lake of rose color. The water, as I was informed by Mr. Thistle, who visited it, was so saturated with salt that sufficient quantities were crystallized near the shore to load a ship. After this, as you can imagine, a lot of salt mining happened, But it was pretty short-lived because the high concentration was a pretty toxic environment, a lot of deaths and illness just due to salt poisoning or sodium poisoning. I'm not sure what that's called, but they up and left. So why is this lake pink? Algae is pretty crazy. It can be bioluminescent, it can be pink, I guess. In this case, it reacts with the salt in such a way that the lake ends up having a pink tint. Pretty cool. The content of this salt isn't that high, by the way. I mean, it's pretty fucking high, but it's similar to the Dead Sea in America. If you've ever been to the Dead Sea or heard about it, so it's generally safe to swim in, but you can't really be there for that long. Sandy Island, similar to Bermeja, is an island that doesn't exist. The island was first included in maps in 1774 and was noted to be miles off the upper coast of Australia. The island was first noted by Captain James Cook in September of 1714 and was then on included in maps and charts. In 1876, a whaling ship also charted the island as real, and in the same spot as the original charting of 1774. This island was even noted on German and British charts as a fact. It wasn't until 1974, almost 200 years after this, that the island was finally taken off the maps because they did their scans, they did their seafloor checks, and they found that the shallowest area in this area is still 1,500 meters below sea level. So this was obviously not an island here. The theory is just generally that a large amalgamation of sea pumice, or the really porous volcanic rock that floats, was kind of just banded together and mistakenly thought to be an island. And this was 200 years that people thought this thing was an island, and just no one fact-checked that until the 70s. Tunguska event. Now this one's my personal favorite off the nature section of this. It's just very cool the way the physics works for it. So this refers to a large explosion in Krasnoyarsk Krai, Russia in 1908. The incident gave off 12 megatons of force and it measured a 5 on the Richter scale. The explosion flattened over 80 million trees around the area of impact and killed 3 people. It was 1908 and it was Russia, so it was kind of hard to keep these numbers, but 3 people. Russian settlers in a nearby village described the event generally as a bluish bright light that left a trace behind. Then, as it made impact with the ground, it shone bright red and an intense wave of heat and air destroyed property, knocked them over, shattered windows, and felled trees. Now, what's interesting about this is the day after, when people were investigating, they found that the crater itself was not there. There was no crater. It was an explosion, and there was trees flattened everywhere, but there was no crater. And in fact, there was actually, right at the epicenter, just a bunch of trees still standing up. So what happened here? Well, it was kind of like a meteor event. A meteor hit Russia, but it didn't really hit Russia. It kind of hit above Russia or exploded midair, and that's the explosion people saw. The blue they saw was probably it burning through the atmosphere. This is just the theory. I'm just telling, not just, whatever. So the tree thing is basically because the force came downwards, and when the trees are right under it, the force doesn't really have anything to knock it over. It's kind of just going around it. So the trees were scorched. Obviously, the leaves are gone, the little branches gone, but they all stayed up more or less. Now, as the kind of round part of the explosion spreads out, the trees farther away from it have a more of a diagonal pressure along it and are more likely to fall. So it was just right at the very center of where it exploded that the trees could stand up. But still, it was a pretty peculiar looking explosion, so you can see why it'd be on this list. Shangye Dangsha National Geological Park. That was the most lazy. Okay. Located in Gansu, China, and established in 2005, this park is known for its pretty unique striped look, and it's even part of the World Heritage Site. This is just layers of rock compressed over millions of years that kind of rolled and stuff, but it does look really pretty, and it's pretty cool. All right, moving on to some more interesting stuff. We have the mystery government places. Some of these are going to be a little longer because there's theories and conspiracies that I have to explain and then debunk if they're debunkable. But yeah, mystery government places. Let's get into it. Hadn't happened. Pine Gap, Australia base. Ooh. This is located in the Northern Territory in the center of Australia and established during the Cold War in 1966. The base is officially named Pine Gap, but also goes by the unclassified name Rainfall and the classified National Reconnaissance Office name of Australian Mission Ground Station. That's the name, Australian Mission Ground Station. That was kind of a mouthful. The base is essentially ran by the CIA, the US's NSA, and the US's NRO. So this is mostly a US base, but the Australian government has partial control as well. This was made during the Cold War in a joint effort between the American and Australian government in a guise that they were doing space research. That's what they said it was for. Obviously, that was a lie. But they were actually going to monitor the missiles and satellites in the atmosphere. Since 9/11, this base has actually seen more action and gone from 2 antennas to 38 and doubling the staff size. So, because, like I said in the beginning, this is partially controlled, only partially, by the Australian government. So naturally, they could get a little curious as to what was going on, what the US was doing. And in 1999, an Australian Senate committee was really frustrated, and they actually asked a professor from a local college to come and give a rundown on what kinds of signals were being captured in and out. So this guy's name was DeBall. I'm going to call him DB, because just calling him Ball is strange. So DB stated that there were 4 categories of signals collected. There was telemetry, which was used to monitor and verify ballistic missiles and arms. There was signals from anti-missile and aircraft radars. There were communication signals for satellites to pick up and redirect. And finally, the most obvious, they were microwaves from long-distance phone calls. That was kind of all he found. Not really that spooky. I mean, we kind of knew that already. Like, yeah, they're just using this to, spy on people, obviously. Now, the main controversy surrounding this base was in 1975. The Prime Minister at the time of Australia supported closing the base, or at least ending America's involvement in the base. Obviously, America did not like this, and according to a CIA officer involved in running the base, this actually caused quite a stir at the White House during the time. So in November of that year, the same day that the Prime Minister was ready to tell the Australian Parliament about the intricate functions of the base and the CIA presence there, he was dismissed from office by Governor General John Kerr by reserve powers. This seems pretty fishy, and honestly it probably is, but there's also the fact that the general had already been talking about dismissing the Prime Minister since there was a deadlock to pass proper legislation, and he might have been on his way out already, but still, that was a pretty suspect. Mystery Spot, California. Located near Santa Cruz, California, built in 1939, the allure of this mystery house is its strange effect on your gravity and perception of reality. It was opened up by George Prather in 1940 when he apparently felt dizzy in his house and wanted to study it. After some thought, he decided to make it a show and invited people to come for demonstrations and the like. It's been open ever since and is actually a certified California landmark. Unfortunately, the spot isn't very mysterious. The only thing that it really had going for it was that the house was built on an incline, giving way to perception issues as well as the appearance of a misdirected gravity. But it doesn't really make it any less cool. I mean, it still works, I guess. It's just not mysterious. Google Earth and Snow Saddle. This one doesn't directly refer to the location, but rather Google Maps and the way that we see certain locations. Back in 2019, Google Earth saw some controversy online as certain areas were blacked out or blurred when you went to go see them using the app. An example is the Heart Base from the last video, which was a while ago. Upon looking at it, it was blocked visually by a green square. Snow Saddle, or the mountain Kangtega in the Himalayan mountain range, was one such place. Looking up both of these places now, it might have been a glitch, or they might have just done away with that kind of censorship and gone for just a more simplified map, because I can definitely still see all of these places. But for the time, it was a bit controversial. The Man from Tarid. This is a bit of a long story, and it's pretty interesting, but I'm not sure why it's on the locations iceberg, because, I mean, he talks about different places, but ultimately it's his story that's interesting. In any case, the Man from Tarid, now known by his real name, John Zegras, was a 36-year-old Englishman who moved to Japan in October of 1959 with his Korean wife. About 3 months after his arrival, he was arrested by a local Japanese police officer on accounts of possible fraud. After being interrogated, John claims to be the ambassador of the country Negus Habesian. He also claimed to be an American spy, which was supposed to give him diplomatic immunity on the levels of being both an ambassador and a spy. He was asked further about the location of Negus Habesian and said that the country was south of Ethiopia, and even brought a passport that was apparently as big as a magazine. That by itself is obviously pretty fucking suspicious, but the passport had been stamped by different countries in East Asia, and the visa itself was apparently issued by the Japan-Taiwan Exchange Association. Even so, this turned out to be fake, because obviously there's no passport as big as a newspaper. Even so, he told his life story to the Japanese police officers interrogating him. He was apparently born in America and moved around European countries like England and Germany throughout his youth. He claimed that during World War II, he piloted for the Royal Air Force in England and was even captured by Germany on one such occasion. After the war, he said that he went to Latin America and later became a spy for America in South Korea, then was assigned by the United Arab Republic, which I thought he was an American spy, to be a diplomat for the country of Negasabis. He stated that his current stay in Japan was for a secret mission to recruit Japanese officials to work for the United Arab Republic. When the cops contacted the countries from a story, they all said that he was lying, so literally none of his claims were true. I think he was in the military, but I'm not sure if he was a pilot. He got a year of jail time on the initial charge of fraud, and his wife was then deported back to South Korea. This story is a little bit insane, but I think at the end of the day, it was just like a dude who was a liar. I mean, it's not like that crazy. It's just like he lied because he wanted to get out of trouble. But yeah, that's the man from Tard. Flannan Isles Lighthouse. Now this one is pretty cool, pretty interesting. Located about 20 miles west of Lewis Western Islands in Scotland, it was constructed in 1899 to be a 3-person ran lighthouse. Now, it's actually ran technically by 4, where one person is rotating to the mainland and for like a month or so, just to, give a break, and then they'll come back, someone else rotates out, so 3 people on the grounds, 4 people crew total. In December 18th, 1900, a year after the construction of the place, a passing ship noted that the lighthouse light was dim and hard to see in bad weather conditions. Upon the captain's report to the Northern Lighthouse Board, a relief vessel was scheduled to arrive at Flann Island on the 20th. However, due to bad weather, the ship was not able to arrive until the 26th. The ship brought along the 4th lighthouse keeper, Joseph Moore, who was on mainland and now on schedule to switch out with one of the other keepers. From the ship's position off the shore, they could see that the flagstaff had no flag, the boxes of supplies were still sitting on the launching pad where they were supposed to be moved from, and there was no sign of either of the 3 keepers. The captain of the ship, Jim Harvey, tried to prompt a response or physical communication of some sort from the keepers by blowing the ship's horn and firing a flare, although there was no response. Alone, Joseph Moore and the 4th keeper took a rowboat and went ashore to investigate the lighthouse. He found the beds unmade, the doors all closed, and the clock stopped. There was also a set of oilskins left out, which oilskins, if you didn't know, is just a waterproof clothing made out of a worn-out sail fabric and wax. It's kind of like a raincoat. With this news, Moore returned to the ship to tell the captain and brought 3 seamen back to the lighthouse to keep it running, while the captain docked in Lewis, east of the isle, to contact the Lighthouse Association about the event. As the lighthouse was being kept, the crew of 4 searched for the missing keepers, but the island was completely empty. They did, however, find evidence to explain the disappearance. The east landing of the isle was in order, but the west landing showed signs of storm damage, such as rebar being bent out of concrete, huge rocks being moved, and the turf up on top of the cliffside, 60 meters up, was ripped away by about 33 feet. All of this damage led to the superintendent of the Northern Lighthouse Board, who was conducting the investigation, to believe that the 3 men had been trying to secure a crate on the western landing and that a massive wave had hit the landing, washing all 3 keepers into the ocean. He also stated that they had done this mid-storm and that one of them wasn't even wearing a raincoat, meaning that this was likely an impulsive decision by the 3, or that it was an unforeseen accident that needed to be attended to. That's the official story, however there's been plenty of speculation leading to many theories. The first theory is that given that one of the keepers had been fined for leaving equipment out in a storm, he probably wanted to make sure that it didn't wash away and so went out to secure it. This might have led to the other 2 helping him out and getting caught as well, or possibly some variation of that. A lot of theories are like that, where they explain a possible reason why one of the experienced keepers would be outside in a storm when they'd know better, and the other 2 would have to come save them only to die as well. There is another theory that one of them went insane and killed the other 2, but there's really no evidence of this. The 3 bodies were never found, and as far as we know, the mystery is unsolved. Mapimi Silent Zone. This is in reference to the patch of desert located in Durango, Mexico. This place is well known for the urban legend surrounding the phenomenon that no signals can be picked up from this area, radio or phone. This place is compared to the Bermuda Triangle, in which there's tons of strange things that happen, but the rumors began in 1970 when a test rocket malfunctioned and crashed on the desert patch. The crash site brought the U.S. Air Force to clean up and guard the area, as the missile had cobalt-57, a radioactive element contained within it. Of course, this brought the attention and conspiracy to the area. Apparently, some locals were hired temporarily to guard the recovery site, and one of the local guards helped spread these rumors and conspiracies around. Denver Airport Conspiracies. Denver Airport Conspiracies refer to the nebula of rumors and tall tales strung together about the airstrip and its surrounding area. The actual airport is in Denver, Colorado, and was established in 1995. This airport has the largest airport in North America, and is the 2nd largest in the world, so naturally, a popular institution will attract a lot of sorts of attention. In fact, the amount of conspiracy about the strip is so circulated that the Denver Airport website site itself released a manual in 2020 as a guide to talk about this. The first and most popular theory is that the New World Order is building and maintaining the airport to keep track of the most populated airspace in America. The second is that the statue outside the airport, named Mustang, is cursed. This was spread around after a part of the statue fell on the artist Luis Jimenez in 2006, killing him while he was still making it. The statue was then finished by his sons, and the deep aqua blue statue was given red glowing eyes in memory of their father's neon shop. However, the red demonic eyes and the death linked with the beast has led to names like Blucifer and a demonic characterization of the statue. The third conspiracy is that the letters AU and AG inscribed on the floor of the Greta Hall is meant to jointly describe a toxic Australian poison that the Illuminati will use to genocide the weak. This is something people actually believe. I feel like when people hear Illuminati nowadays, it's kind of a joke, but apparently people still believe this shit. The letters, though, refer to the elemental abbreviation for gold and silver, since Colorado had a pretty strong history with mining for these minerals. The last and most elaborate theory is that there's tunnels underneath the Denver airport which serve to allow elites to access underground bunkers miles away. This one is actually a bit suspect because even in the Denver airport online pamphlet, they only say that it's not true and that the section of the land that the conspiracy is referring to isn't open to the public anymore. They don't really say that those tunnels don't exist, they just say that they're not open to the public, which is kind of like, okay, that was never part of the conspiracy, but yeah. Club 33 Disney refers to the many clubs across all Disney locations that are used as private dining areas for VIP guests. The clubs first opened in 1967, and since then have seen many renovations to be as classist and flaunty as possible. The club is available for reservation if you got the bucks, and when I mean that, I mean bucks. There's about an 800-member waiting list lasting 17 years, and the entry fee is $25,000, plus an annual $11,000 to stay a member. For all this money and time, you get access to the club freely, as well as a custom ID passport for the park, and even an escort around the park by the working cast. I think the reason this place is on this list is because there's a lot of rumors that the location is very secretive about its activities, and even some that say the name Club 33 is a hint at the highest level one can attain as a Freemason, level 33. Room 39, North Korea. This is in reference to a political party, not actually a room in North Korea, that apparently uses illegal activities to bring in money for the corrupt government. This organization uses its methods of selling drugs, counterfeiting bills, and insurance fraud to accumulate up to $1 billion per year for the North Korean government. The room itself, or office I suppose, is rumored to be located in the Bureau building in the city of Pyongyang. The party was established in 1970. This government branch is publicly responsible for the finances and foreign currency earning, but there's generally an accepted rumor that illegal shit happens there. Royal Air Force Menwith Hill is located in North Yorkshire and was founded in 1959. The base is mainly used to provide communication support, as well as serve as an interceptor of communication radio signals and warn of possible missile launches in the large area it monitors. The site is mainly run by the United Kingdom, but intelligence serves allied nations as well. This base is really just another one of those suspicious bases that monitor things, and the main discussion point around this one is Echelon. The Echelon interception system was claimed to exist and investigated by a European Parliament committee aptly named Temporary Committee on the Echelon Interception System. They were set up in 2000, but their final report was issued in 2001, just a year after, stating that the surveillance system indeed does exist, but there's not much they could do about it anyway. They stated that the system has two features, the first being the ability to intercept and examine emails, telephone calls, faxes, you name it. The second feature is that the base and intelligence gathered is the shared property of the Five Eye, or the intelligence alliance set up between Canada, America, Australia, the UK, and New Zealand. They all jointly pay for and run each of their intelligence bases, as well as are privy to the intelligence that each base might receive. This is kind of just spooky. I mean, it's just generally like government spying stuff, but yeah, we all knew that. Gravity Hill. Similar to Mystery Spot, this location is known for wacky gravity, but just the same, it's a result of illusions. The road was built on a slight decline, but the area around the road makes it appear as though the road is going uphill, which leads to sort of wow moments. Last one for our conspiracy/government places. This is actually a real-life concentration camp where pretty awful things happened. Manchu Detachment 731, also known as Unit 731, was the nightmare fuel for every secret base you probably ever heard of. This place was dedicated to creating and testing deadly chemicals for new forms of chemical warfare, and this place is where war crimes of Japan really got their chance to spread their wings. The secret base was established in 1937 and used up till the end of World War II in 1945. It was located in what was known as the state of Manchuria, which was set up in 1934 after the Japanese invasion of Manchuria. Being a secret, the base was known to the public as the Epidemic Prevention and Water Purification Department of the Kutawang Army and received vast financial support from the Japanese government. However, locally, the base also went by a lumber mill, and I'll get into that a little bit later. The base would test on prisoners of war and even just random people who happen to be nearby. with a total estimated death bordering on about 500,000. What's even worse is that after World War II, much like with Nazi scientists, many of the researchers in Unit 731 were given immunity in exchange for their research on bioweapons and their effects on humans. They even disregarded victim accounts as communist propaganda to take attention away from the fact that they were hiring these garbage human beings. Back to the base, this unit was one of the many that were set up for the purpose of weapons and chemical testing, and all compounds were well funded and well staffed by the Japanese government. The complex itself was made up of over 150 buildings, covering about 2 square miles or 6 square kilometers. These buildings included factories, administration, research wings, hospitals, 2 prisons, and a satellite branch. They even had over 1,800 containers to produce chemical weapons in, and was capable of producing 66 pounds or 30 kilos of the bubonic plague. A project ran by the unit was named Maruta, or LOG, and was essentially used to describe any testing that involved human experimentation. The name comes from the fact that prisoners and experiments were referred to as logs, leading to jokes between guards about how many logs fell during chemical weapons tests. The types of prisoners were taken and chosen by the unit based off of their perceived inferiority, or their opposition to Japan. This included mentally ill, the handicapped, political prisoners, normal prisoners, bandits, and even just Chinese villagers who happened to be nearby. The test subjects were also non-discriminate between men, women, children, and the elderly, and they did use chemicals to kill old people and infants in the same chamber as everyone else. On top of that, as you can imagine, prisoners were frequently sexually abused by the guards. There's a lot of detail that I found on the types of things they did to prisoners, and I'm not going to go into it because it's a little messed up, and I'm just kind of doing a general cover on this topic, but it is very tragic, and anything that you could think of happened. I mean, there was target practice. The testing of chemical weapons by itself was pretty tragic. I just want to say that places like this have very tragic history, and we shouldn't forget that this wasn't like a cool secret base for conspiracy fuel. It was a disgusting facility that butchered human beings in the name of science. So let's not forget that this stuff really happened. That's all I'm saying. Centralia is actually a place I almost visited back when I explored abandoned places with my friends. Located in Columbia County, Pennsylvania, this is in reference to a town that had a mine established in 1856. The town had been rich in coal and had several strip mines opened up in the area. Around 1962, the Centralia Borough Council decided the landfill was growing too large and opted to burn the dump to make room for more trash, which by the way is pretty common, and that's how landfills are emptied. May of that year, the council hired 5 volunteer firefighters to set the dump on fire and carefully watch it, and then put it out safely in an abandoned strip mine on the outskirts of town. The problem was that after all was said and done, the fire had not been properly extinguished, and the pit that the dump was burning in had a hole that led to some abandoned coal mine. The issue following could have been avoided, and was actually on schedule to be avoided by a regulation that demanded fire-resistant clay to be layered down between the layers of the landfill and the exposed strip mine. However, that renovation came late, and the burning of the landmine fell on an earlier date. As you can imagine, this started a subterranean fire throughout the strip mines, completely submersing the underside of the town in flames. As you might not imagine though, the fire raged on without any attention put on it until 1979, when a gas station owner was checking the temperature of the underground gasoline reservoir and found that the gas was at 172 Fahrenheit, or 77 C. That alone was not enough, however, and in 1981, a 12-year-old boy had the ground below him collapse into a smoking sinkhole. He was luckily saved by his 14-year-old cousin who pulled him out. This hole was tested to contain lethal levels of carbon dioxide, and even after the gasoline boiling and a boy almost getting barbecued, the town was still split over if this was even an issue. Over the course of 20 years following this, the US government granted $42 million in relocation money to residences, as well as the Pennsylvania government claiming the land and evicting the residents for their safety. The zip code for the zone was even discontinued in 2002. Unfortunately, this fire spread underneath to the nearby town of Burnsville, which also needed citizen relocation and evacuation. The fire is still burning today, and the once small town of Centralia is now all but a ghost town, many of the buildings demolished or run down naturally, without even so much as a zip code to its name. Kolmenskott, located in Namibia, southern Africa, was a small town founded in 1908 when the area was discovered to have diamonds by a German mining company. The town built afterwards was semi-profitable, but as World War II hit, the resources began to dwindle, and with a new and more profitable diamond mine being set up in 1928 further south, the town was all but abandoned by 1956, houses and all. Now all that's left is sand submerged houses and stores that were left to decay decades ago. Mostly, it's used for cool photos and some movie scenes, but it's just a ghost town. Gunkanjima Island, located about 15 kilometers off the coast of Nagasaki.
The island's actual name is Hashima Island, and the nickname translates to Battleship Island due to its similar shape and seawall design. The island was turned into a mini-city to house coal miners when coal was discovered on the seabed in 1810. It was strictly a coal mining complex, however, starting in 1916, apartment blocks were built to accommodate workers to live on site, as well as a school, a kindergarten, hospital, and various community structures to build the image of a small town, habitable for the families of the miners. This site, more infamously, was used during the Second World War by Japan to house Korean and Chinese prisoners of war to use for forced labor in the mine. It's thought as many as 1,300 POWs died during that time. Abandoned Viaduct Petrobras. This refers to a seemingly random strip of highway that was built on the forest of Sao Paulo, Brazil in the 1950s. It was part of a larger project by the Brazilian government to create an interstate highway. However, construction in the jungle is not an easy task, and an economic crisis rendered this elevated stretch soon abandoned. Now it just kind of sits in the forest, very out of place looking. Real sword and stone Italy. This one's pretty cool because it's actually a reality that this sword is from the era the supposed legend is a part of. Located in Montespipi Chapel in Tuscany, Italy, the sword belonged to Galgano Guidotti, a knight and son of a feudal lord born in 1148. The only line in the biography portion of anything I can find on this guy is that he is said to have led a ruthless life in his early years. Everything else I found is about his apparent history of a cult that had scattered Catholic monks in it. Regardless, at some point after his death, he was made a saint and his sword was placed in a stone. At least there's evidence, so there's really no evidence that that's his sword other than the legend, but an analysis of the sword's handle proves its age coincides with the general era of his life, so, you know, a guy can dream. Adam's Bridge. This refers to the naturally formed land bridge between Pambam Island, India, and Manor Island on the northwestern coast of Sri Lanka. The island is also known as Ramas Bridge or Rama Estu. Oh man, dude, do you hear my laundry? I fucking hate my laundry in the back. Okay, it's so annoying. I mean, it's not the laundry, it's the water heater, because I'm in the basement of my house and it's like, ugh. As it stands now, the deepest sea level around the island is about 1 meter or 3 feet. The Indian Sanskrit epic Ramayana, which is written between the 7th century BCE and the 3rd century CE, that is a huge time gap, states that a land bridge was built by the Indian god Rama using his Vanara or ape men army. Rama had this land bridge built to reach his wife, who was kidnapped by the Rakshasa King Ravana. The locations connected by the bridge in the epic are well known to be the 2 locations connected by today's Adam Bridge, and so we can only assume this is the bridge mentioned. Georgia Guidestones. This topic is a bit of a heavy source of debate from religious and political perspectives. I'm not sure how current it is. I don't think people care about it that much nowadays, but you know, it was a little bit controversial in its time. These are located in Elbert County, Georgia, USA, and this structure is made up of 4 large slabs surrounding a middle pillar with a capstone sitting on top, and it was established in March of 1980. The set of stones depict rules and messages that's been chiseled out in 8 languages, with each face of a stone having its own language, but all of them have the same 10 rules. There's also a time capsule and an explanatory slab located near the exit, and the time capsule has not yet been opened. So starting with the rules, we have number 1, maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. Number 2, guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity. Number 3, unite humanity with a living new language. Number 4, rule passion, faith, tradition, and all things with tempered reason. Number 5, protect people and nations with fair laws and just courts. Number 6, let all nations rule internally, resolving external disputes in a world court. Number 7, avoid petty laws and useless officials. Number 8, balance personal rights with social duties. Yeah, these theories are pretty rough, so the stone is largely disliked by the religious conspiracy crowd. Generally, these rules don't sound too bad, but some of these are a little bit genocidal, like maintain humanity under like 500 million, essentially. Going from 8 billion, it's going to be a little bit tough to get there. Gonna have to do a little bit of culling. I'm not sure that's something that we want to do. Everything else I think is okay, but yeah, let's not genocide. That would be bad, I think. Roller coaster bridge. Known as Roller Coaster Bridge, the actual name of this location is Eshima Ohashi Bridge and is located over the Nakumi Lake in Japan. It was built from 1997 to 2004, and this bridge gets its name from the appearance it has at a certain angle, which almost makes the bridge seem very steep or twisty. Other than that, it's the 3rd largest rigid frame bridge in the world, but yeah, it just kind of looks like a roller coaster. It's not actually upon going there, so unlike the mystery spot, which actually kind of makes you feel dizzy, this one just looks like it. 33 Thomas Street, located Lower Manhattan in New York and built from 1969 to 1974, was the building was originally built for telephone exchange services, which, to the best of my understanding, is an essential function for, or was an essential function for the older phone services. And then, oh,
Did you see me?
no.
There's something. I forgot my mic check.
If you wanted to make a long distance call, you needed to dial their number, which by default was a simpler number, and I think this would like kind of link you to this building was the link between long distance calls, or at least one of them. So this building was a central part of AT&T's long distance lines and department, and seeing as it was in Manhattan, you can imagine the importance of keeping these lines up and powered. Now, in case of emergency, AT&T had an agreement with an electrical utility company that they would manually switch the power on if the power ever failed for one reason or another. And in the event that that didn't happen, the building also had a backup generator, but that took time to get running, so in the worst case scenario, there would be a good few minutes of no power before it was turned on. On September 17th, 1991, a concoction of mistakes and machinery failure resulted in the power going out in the central office. The utility company obviously turned on the power, but because there was a scheduled training that coincided with the incident, a full investigation wasn't done on the spot, and so one of the plants for the central building was left to a backup generator. With nobody to check it, this left 5 million calls blocked, and more dangerously, 398 airports lost contact with either other planes or other airports. As you can imagine, the system was redesigned and a better procedure was implemented eventually. And that's it for Tier 3. We did it, finally. It only took 2 years. Jesus Christ. I'm feeling pretty good about this, like doing stuff again. I have a nice space as well. You can see I got my JoJo put. I'm a JoJo fan. I like JoJo. But yeah, I'm really excited to make videos again for as long as I can. Just because I'm kind of in between jobs, and also I'm still looking for one, and like life, like I said in the beginning, I was just I didn't have my Adderall, which really helps me out because I got really bad ADHD. So I'm really excited to be doing this again, and I'm gonna see if I can finish up this mini series, do all the tiers, and then eventually see if I can get into other mini series, or maybe make isolated videos. If you guys have any things that you want me to cover or look into specifically, I can make a video about that. Just let me know in the comments. And yeah, that's pretty much it for now. I'll see you in the next one.